In the last episode, Gilgamesh, king of Uruk, and his best friend Enkidu, against the advice of both men and gods, had snuck into the cedar forest, killed its guardian demon Humbaba, and cut down its trees. Having achieved their goals, the boys then sail their prized possessions up the mighty river Euphrates back to Uruk. In every good adventure story, there's always a romance, and since the Epic of Gilgamesh is the first story ever told, of course it has a heroine, and she is none other than the goddess of love herself, Ishtar. No, really, she is the love goddess herself, Ishtar. Ishtar appears out of the blue and declares a huge crush on Gilgamesh, and being a woman ahead of her time, in terms of women's lib, she proposes marriage. Gilgamesh, in his usual prideful way, refuses the lady, not so politely pointing out that all her exes end up dead. Oh dear, Gilgamesh, haven't you heard about a woman scorned and all that? You don't refuse a goddess. Ishtar predictably flies into a rage and sends the bull of heaven, a wild and scary creature, to teach the boys a lesson. The bull arrives, it huffs, it puffs, and yes, you guessed it, the boys kill the bull, and Enkidu ends up throwing one of its legs into Ishtar's face. Between upsetting a goddess and being cursed by Humbaba, Enkidu was not long for this earth. To cut a long story short, the gods decide that one of the boys must die for their transgressions, and unfortunately for him, Enkidu draws the short straw. He tragically falls ill and dies. Gilgamesh is inconsolable and basically goes into a deep depression. But this gets him thinking about the meaning of life and why people have to die. This question sets him on a new journey. Basically, Gilgamesh is trying to outsmart death. Gilgamesh's journey takes him to the far edges of the known world. In fact, he's traveling from his city of Uruk in today's Iraq to the island of Bahrain, which in ancient times was called Dilmun. There he's looking for a man called Utnapishtim. Utnapishtim was the only man on the planet granted immortality by the gods. After battling some giant scorpion creatures and sailing through the waters of death, Gilgamesh finally reaches Utnapishtim, who disappointingly tells him, "Sorry mate, but you can't outsmart death, and you're not worthy of immortality." Now you may ask, so why was Utnapishtim granted immortality when you can't outsmart death? You've probably heard the story of Noah and his ark that saved animals and people from a terrible flood sent to destroy mankind. Well, Utnapishtim did a similar thing, and for that amazing compassion and heroism, he was granted immortality by the god Enlil. Utnapishtim tells Gilgamesh that it's pointless to try and outsmart death. The only thing that is uncertain is when a person will die, not if they will die. But he is going to give Gilgamesh the chance to prove that he is worthy of immortality. He challenges him to stay awake for 6 days and 7 nights. Of course, Gilgamesh goes to sleep almost instantly. Utnapishtim, realizing that Gilgamesh won't believe that he slept through the challenge, secretly asks his wife to bake a loaf of bread for every day that Gilgamesh is asleep. When Gilgamesh wakes up on the 6th day and is shown the moldy loaves of bread by Utnapishtim, he's forced to admit failure. Utnapishtim feels sorry for Gilgamesh, and by way of a consolation prize tells him of a special magical plant that grows at the bottom of the sea. It doesn't give you immortality, but if eaten, makes you young again. Gilgamesh immediately seizes the chance. He puts rocks on his feet, sinks to the bottom of the sea, finds the plant and grabs it. He then sets out on his return journey to his kingdom of Uruk. On the way, he spots an oasis and decides to take a bath. But unfortunately, he doesn't take his magical plant with him. When he comes out of the spring, he finds a snake has eaten his plant, and as it slithers away, it sheds its skin and is rejuvenated. At this point, Gilgamesh starts crying. The whole journey seems to be a waste of time. His best friend Enkidu is dead, and one day he too will lose his life. There doesn't seem to be any point. But as Gilgamesh approaches Uruk, he takes a look around and realizes that his city is great. It is the most technologically advanced place on Earth. What Gilgamesh realized is that even if people can't live forever, they can leave an immortal legacy made up of their achievements and their deeds. Gilgamesh lived 4,000 years ago, and we're still fascinated by his story. We can still even look upon the ruins of his ancient city. As long as people read the Epic of Gilgamesh, Gilgamesh and Enkidu will remain alive as the greatest heroes of the first poem ever written on Earth. And if that's not outsmarting death, then I don't know what is.